Most people think cold showers burn belly fat through some magical calorie melting process. They're wrong, but the truth is more interesting. Inside your body right now, there's a hormone that spikes by 530% when you hit cold water. There's a protective protein that only activates during cold exposure, one that might slow brain aging. And there's fat tissue that burns calories instead of storing them, but most adults have lost it. The real story about cold showers isn't about suffering for weight loss. It's about three biological mechanisms most people never hear about, and whether activating them makes a meaningful difference in your metabolism. When you step into cold water, something dramatic happens inside your body within seconds. Your brain floods your system with a hormone called norepinephrine. Research published by Schremek and colleagues found that immersion in 14 degrees Celsius water for 1 hour increased norepinephrine levels by 530%. That's more than a 5-fold increase. Other studies have confirmed increases of 200 to 300% even with shorter cold exposure. This matters because norepinephrine does 4 critical things in your body. First, it dramatically increases alertness and focus. This is why people report feeling like they've had multiple cups of coffee after a cold shower. The chemical is literally waking up your brain. Second, norepinephrine elevates mood and motivation. It's one of the key neurotransmitters that helps you feel energized and positive. Some antidepressant medications work partly by increasing norepinephrine levels in the brain. Third, and this is where fat loss comes in, norepinephrine signals your fat cells to release stored fat into your bloodstream so it can be burned for energy. Without adequate norepinephrine signaling, your body is reluctant to tap into fat stores. Fourth, norepinephrine is the primary signal that activates brown fat, which I'll explain shortly. Research from multiple institutions confirms this norepinephrine response is consistent and substantial. The increase happens quickly during cold exposure and can remain elevated for hours afterward. For people struggling with low energy, poor focus, or stubborn fat storage, this hormonal shift is significant. But here's what most people miss. The norepinephrine surge isn't burning fat directly during your 5-minute shower. It's creating the metabolic environment where fat burning becomes easier throughout your entire day. It's changing how your body responds to the fuel you give it. Your body contains 2 completely different types of fat. White fat stores calories like a savings account. Brown fat burns calories to generate heat like a furnace. When you were a baby, you had substantial brown fat to keep warm since you couldn't shiver or move much. As you aged, you lost most of it. Adults have small deposits around the neck, shoulders, and upper back. Brown fat doesn't activate until norepinephrine signals it. When that massive norepinephrine spike happens during cold exposure, it switches on your brown fat. The tissue pulls glucose and fatty acids from your bloodstream and burns them to create heat. A study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that people with active brown fat burned approximately 15% more calories than those without. The researchers used PET scans showing brown fat activity increased significantly during cold exposure. But here's the realistic number. An extra 20 to 250 calories burned, depending on duration and intensity. That's roughly equivalent to a 20 to 30-minute walk. Brown fat activation alone isn't melting pounds. The more interesting finding, regular cold exposure can transform some white fat into beige fat, which acts more like brown fat. Your body converts storage tissue into calorie-burning tissue. This adaptation takes weeks and months, not days. Research in healthy men exposed to 18 degrees Celsius water-perfused suits showed cold exposure activated brown fat and improved insulin sensitivity by approximately 20%. Better insulin sensitivity means your body handles blood sugar more efficiently and stores less excess calories as fat. The brown fat story matters not because it burns huge calories during your shower, but because it represents your body's adaptive response to stress. You're training your metabolism to become more flexible. There's a protein that gets produced when you get cold that researchers are calling one of the most exciting discoveries in brain health. It's called RBM3, a cold shock protein. Professor Giovanna Malucci and colleagues at the University of Cambridge published research in the journal Nature showing that RBM3 has powerful protective effects on brain cell connections called synapses. As you age, you naturally lose synapses. This is part of why memory declines and cognitive function decreases. But the Cambridge research found that when RBM3 levels increased through cooling, mice maintained their synapses, even under conditions that would normally cause them to degenerate. The protein literally protected and regenerated brain connections. In hibernating animals, synapses are lost during hibernation to conserve energy, then reform when the animal warms up in spring. The researchers discovered that RBM3 mediates this remarkable ability to rebuild neural connections. Here's what makes this relevant to humans. Studies examining cold water swimmers and people undergoing therapeutic hypothermia showed that humans also produce RBM3 in response to cold. Your body has the same protective mechanism that hibernating animals use. The research is still early stage for human applications. We have strong evidence from animal studies and preliminary human data, but we don't have decades of clinical trials. However, the mechanism is biologically plausible, and the initial findings are compelling. The Cambridge team found that artificially boosting RBM3 in mice with Alzheimer's disease and prion disease prevented synapse loss, preserved memory, and significantly extended survival. Conversely, knocking down RBM3 accelerated disease progression. This isn't about cold showers curing dementia. It's about understanding that your body has built-in systems for responding to environmental challenges in potentially protective ways. Cold exposure activates ancient biological pathways that may support brain health alongside metabolic effects. All three mechanisms, norepinephrine surge, brown fat activation, and cold shock proteins, contribute to something called metabolic flexibility. This is your body's ability to efficiently switch between burning carbohydrates and burning fat for energy. Research in the Journal of Applied Physiology indicates that cold exposure improves metabolic flexibility by forcing your body to adapt to stress. When you get cold, your body needs energy immediately to generate heat. It learns to mobilize stored fat quickly and efficiently. Over time, this makes your entire metabolic system more responsive. The improvement doesn't just matter during your cold shower. Once you've enhanced metabolic flexibility through regular cold exposure, your body becomes better at burning fat throughout the day, even when you're warm. Multiple studies have examined cold exposure and insulin sensitivity. Research published in Nature Medicine showed that 10 days of cold acclimation at 14 to 15 degrees Celsius increased insulin sensitivity by approximately 43% in people with type 2 diabetes. The improvement came primarily from enhanced glucose uptake in skeletal muscle, not just brown fat activation. Another study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that cold exposure improved insulin sensitivity by about 20% in healthy young men. Better insulin sensitivity means your cells respond more effectively to insulin, which helps regulate blood sugar and reduces fat storage signals. The Mayo Clinic Proceedings Journal identified cold exposure as one of several readily available strategies to restore metabolic flexibility and improve mitochondrial function alongside exercise and caloric restriction. But here's the critical context. These benefits require consistent exposure over time and work best when combined with proper nutrition, adequate sleep, and regular physical activity. Cold exposure is an adjunct strategy, not a replacement for foundational health practices. Let me be direct about what cold showers can and cannot do for belly fat loss. The direct calorie burn is modest. Based on research, you might burn an extra 100 to 250 calories daily with significant cold exposure. That's helpful, but not transformative by itself. If your nutrition is poor, if you're not sleeping well, if you're sedentary, cold showers won't save you. Fat loss requires caloric deficit created primarily through diet, supported by movement and sleep. Here's the realistic framework. Nutrition accounts for approximately 70% of fat loss results. Sleep quality represents about 15%. Physical activity contributes about 10%. Stress management practices, like cold exposure, represent 3 to 5%. Cold showers are optimization, not foundation. They're part of comprehensive metabolic health. But that 3 to 5% matters when you're doing the fundamentals well. The norepinephrine boost improves mood and energy, making you more likely to stay active. Enhanced insulin sensitivity helps your body process nutrients effectively. Improved stress resilience reduces cortisol-driven fat storage. If you want to try cold showers, start gradually. Begin with 30 seconds of cool water at the end of your regular shower. Not ice cold, just uncomfortably cool. Increase by 15 to 30 seconds weekly until you reach 2 to 3 minutes. Research suggests 50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, is effective for triggering metabolic responses. This is cold enough to activate norepinephrine and brown fat without being dangerous. Control your breathing. When you hit cold water, your body wants to gasp. Instead, breathe slowly through your nose for 4 counts, out through your mouth for 4 counts. This manages the stress response appropriately. Critical safety. Some people should not do cold showers without medical clearance. If you have heart conditions or high blood pressure, cold causes rapid blood vessel constriction that can be dangerous. Talk to your doctor. If you have Raynaud's disease or circulation problems, cold can trigger painful episodes. If you're pregnant, your body is managing significant metabolic changes. Skip cold stress. If you have anxiety or panic disorders, sudden cold can trigger episodes. For others, cold showers are generally safe when done gradually. Listen to your body. If you feel dizzy, if extremities go numb, if you feel disoriented, the water is too cold or you're staying too long. So to answer directly, do cold showers burn belly fat? Not dramatically and not alone, but they support fat loss through meaningful biological mechanisms. The norepinephrine surge improves mood, focus, and fat mobilization. Brown fat activation teaches your body to burn calories efficiently. Cold shock proteins may provide neuroprotection. Enhanced metabolic flexibility and insulin sensitivity help your body process nutrients better. These benefits extend beyond fat loss to mental discipline, stress resilience, and potentially protective effects against metabolic disease and brain aging. The real value might be that cold exposure represents beneficial stress, hormesis. Small, controlled stressors like exercise, fasting, and cold trigger adaptive responses that make your body stronger. We live in engineered comfort. Your home is climate controlled. Your car is temperature regulated. You never experience environmental challenge unless you choose to. But your body evolved with temperature variation and has systems designed to respond to cold. When you voluntarily expose yourself to cold, you're not suffering pointlessly. You're training adaptive mechanisms. You're practicing difficult things, which builds the mental discipline you need for all health commitments. Here's what matters. Cold exposure triggers real, research-backed mechanisms: massive norepinephrine increases, brown fat activation, cold shock protein production, and improved metabolic flexibility. These aren't magic, but they're not insignificant either. They work best as part of comprehensive health practices, including proper nutrition, regular exercise, quality sleep, and stress management. If this video gave you real understanding based on actual science instead of clickbait claims, hit that like button to help others find evidence-based information. Share this with anyone asking about cold showers or ice baths so they understand what the research actually shows. Drop a comment. Are you going to try cold showers after learning about these mechanisms? What interests you most, the metabolic effects, the potential brain benefits, or the mental discipline component? Remember, your body has sophisticated systems for responding to environmental challenges in ways that make you stronger and more resilient. Cold exposure is one way to activate those systems. It's not comfortable, but it's not supposed to be. The discomfort is the signal. The adaptation is the benefit. Be patient, start gradually, and remember that health is built through small, sustainable practices repeated over time, not through desperate searches for quick fixes.